we have Professor Sundar Sarukkai here. We are very happy to have you here, sir. Professor Sundar Sarukkai has had a wonderful journey through philosophy and science and fiction, a lot of different men of different disciplines and things. Could you please tell us, like, how did you start from the science and ended up in philosophy and fiction?
Thank you, Mashkoor. It's lovely to be here. Always enjoy coming to Calicut and engaging with many of your groups here. Thank you for this particular opportunity to share some thoughts. We've been talking about some of these things for the last 2 days and yesterday with you. And there's so much of common questions and themes we're all interested in. So I'm glad that we have some limited time to start thinking about it. Well, as for me, whether it's disciplines are just one framework to make sense of the world. So when I was interested in physics, I thought physics was a way to understand the world in some sense, and it's something which I'm very close to, physics or maths, disciplines I really enjoy. But then I thought there are certain questions which were not within the domain of the discipline per se, or the kind of questions one can ask about what I was doing in physics. So, I mean, I was interested in literature as I was young, and therefore philosophy and literature seemed to be very, something which allowed me a way of thinking about the world, understanding it in some sense through a different framework. So philosophy is all, for me, I would see it as a very natural progression of my thinking. But like in everything else, you need institutional structures to support you.
Yes.
And when it happened, when I was doing my PhD in physics, I could also find possibility to study philosophy. That made it possible for me to shift.
Okay. So you mean the moving towards the philosophy and then towards the literature gives you more freedom, or it gives you like a way out from the limitations of the place you have been, like for example the science, then philosophy opens more possibilities, then the fiction gives you a bit more in the sense you can be more rebellious when it comes to the fiction.
Very interesting point. That's an interesting way to put it. I don't. Okay, so the first thing is, when I moved from physics to philosophy, for example, I was actually doing something else. I was not more free in the problems I was trying to solve, because every discipline has its own objects of interest. And while there's a lot of very interesting things in physics, those kind of questions, doing research at that level, did not capture my interest as much, because I was more interested about people. I was more interested about culture and societies. And so those questions were very much, I was trying to make sense of the world we are living in. So the social world and the personal psychological world intruded into my doing of science. And doing science is really difficult, and you need a lot of perseverance. You need to be focused. Many times I know, very competent scientists have to cut out, they are also very interested in other things too, but they may have to cut out on many of those interests in order to focus on it. And it just came at a point of time for me that when I found that I'm willing to do that for philosophy. And I thought it was not, I didn't want to do that much energy for doing some models or doing some solving a physics problem. But learning philosophy and writing and doing all the hard work in philosophy for me was worth it, because that is the domain which interested me. So by that I don't mean that I could do physics better, because I didn't do physics at all. I stepped away from it. But because philosophy at one level is about trying to understand foundations of something. So it made me appreciate the sciences a lot more. Because I began to understand why you would do certain kinds of things. How did science develop? So history and philosophy of science was so fascinating. And then later on, when I read about sociology of science, it really made me see the complexity and the richness of any of these human activities, including science. So it's a different kind of a rigor in philosophy than in science. But literature, I've always wanted to write. I think my writing in philosophy is also triggered with the same. The way I write fiction and philosophy are very similar. You know, it just kind of immersion to something and writing about it. Yes, I think you're right that literature gave me a little more freedom to be able to talk about things. For example, following up which we'll talk about, allowed me to write about religion, which I couldn't have done in a philosophical or even in an academic manner. And also, I think fiction brought me back to what I think is one of the most important functions of language, which is language as a real force which can make you, it's not just to communicate and transmit some content, knowledge or truth or whatever, but it's something which can make you feel very deeply. And for me, fiction is really an exploration of language, what I can do with language, not just to tell a story, but how I can, you know, how you transmit and make, you know, make language really speak yourself, push at your limits of being. So in that sense, there were different phases, I think. But you know, this writing is not like, it's not like I did writing after doing philosophy. It has always been part of it. I've been writing for a long time. I've been writing plays and some part of the fiction I've been writing earlier. So it is just that at this time I could find a publisher to publish it. So that's far more important than just writing.
True.
Yeah.
So I feel like philosophy or science invest more towards the disambiguation, like quantifying things and making it more precise and more clear, removing all the disambiguation, ambiguities and things. But when you comes towards the philosophy or more towards the fiction, you have more spaces for ambiguities. So much so that the end of you end your fiction, your novel, without with an open ending, in the sense you allow the reader to interpret, like what happened later, like what happened to the children. Did they come back? Did they speak later? What happened to them? Like a complete world of ambiguities. So it gives you more freedom, I guess. But then I was wondering, like, how do you navigate these two? You said you started writing fictions and things while you were doing the science itself. But then how did you navigate in between these two extremes, or not extremes to in per se, but in these two, like the extreme disambiguation and quantifying of the philosophy or of the science, and then the other side of the fiction?
You know, again, a very fascinating question. I think you've zeroed in on a very important question about science itself. Yes, it's true that science focuses on particular kinds of descriptions which uses quantification. So it is a way of having a little more quote unquote objective forms of discourse once I have a quantified term to talk about phenomena. Okay. But that does not mean that there is no ambiguity. In fact, my first book, which I wrote in philosophy called Translating the World, Science and Language, is actually a book about showing how meaning is produced in science and mathematics and science. And where I argue that metaphorical imagination, which people often say is only about literature, is very much a part of scientific and mathematical writing. The point is actually a very interesting question about how science uses language itself. The point, what I'm trying to say is, the so-called problem of ambiguity may not be within disciplines like philosophy, science or literature. It is more about language. The belief that, let's say, languages like English or Malayalam, etc., by themselves, the spoken languages, are ambiguous means that words can have different meanings. In the loosest sense, that's what we actually mean. And but that goes back to a fundamental question in philosophy of language. What really, does a word has a fixed meaning, or does a word acquire meaning in the context of a sentence or in the context of a larger text, and so on? That's a very fundamental question, right?
Or is the language lie altogether?
That
as you would say.
Yeah, that is, okay, that's a more radical end which I bring in my novel. But this is basically the question of so-called ambiguity. Now, when scientists have been invoking this question of mathematics as the language of science, they were trying to suggest that quantification or mathematization in general reduces ambiguity and it has very specific meaning. But that's really not true. In fact, the power of scientific theorizing comes from the fact that a symbol can actually acquire different meanings
Yes.
at different stages, and therefore it makes it very powerful.
Yes.
So, one hand we could look at these things in different ways. One is to have one fixed meaning, other is to have many different meanings, or third, which is a strategy of symbolization, mathematics, is to say it has no meaning at all.
Okay.
It's just an empty thing. I'm doing what I want with it,
Okay.
and I will add meaning when I want.
Yes.
So, that is the function of scientific theorizing.
Okay.
So, it is actually, that's why it's so creative and powerful. So, for me, yeah, I didn't find it as a challenge even when I was doing science to write, because for me, the question was, it was very clear at some level that science is about the domains are very different. That science is about certain kinds of things. It could be about how do electrons behave, or what happens in an atomic structure, or how do they describe gravity, and so on. Okay, that is the object of interest.
Okay.
And I can, it doesn't matter to me whether I use a different model. I can play around with it. I have a lot of freedom to say, what if gravity was something else? Let me build a model and see what will happen. There's no cost to it.
Okay.
But let us say I'm talking about you or a community or
Yes.
people. I don't have that freedom. In fact, meaning is far more constrained
Oh, okay.
in the social science.
Oh, really?
I can't just say, I can say anything I want about an object, a stone.
Okay.
I can say maybe it has some quality which is like this, or Newton said gravity is 1 over r squared. I'll say, actually you can write legitimate scientific thing by saying, let us assume that the real gravity is not exactly 1 over r squared, maybe 1 over r cubed, or r 2.0003. And let me see what happens to the consequence. So I build a model.
Yeah, true.
But when I'm talking about you or individuals, or writing a novel about individual characters, or about writing in social science about communities and others, then we are actually far more constrained.
Oh, really? That's a very interesting argument to make.
Because we are constrained, right?
Oh, but a general feeling is that when it comes to the science, you're more constrained, and more comes towards the disambiguation and clarifying things and things. But you would say that's a domain of more imagination?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Creativity.
Creativity.
See, ask this simple question, which I often ask my science students, right? Which is, science today is actually, although the meaning of the word science is knowledge, that's the root of the word, to know, knowing, knowledge. Science today is really about research, producing new knowledge.
Okay.
It's not just about communicating knowledge. If you're a scientist, you have to publish. You have to, and publication is nothing but producing new knowledge. If you look at the number,
it has become an entity in itself.
It is a factory of knowledge production. It's not just a factory; it's a huge mega factory. If you look at the number of papers published every year, it runs into millions.
Okay.
It runs. That means each paper has produced new bit of knowledge. Now we have millions of these papers which are published. Are we really producing that much knowledge?
Exactly.
Or is it about producing, because your imagination is really not that cut? You can actually imagine anything about the universe. The only constraint is the language of expressing it, the rules of following certain kinds of calculational logic of it, correct calculation, etc. But in principle, the more more radical you are, the possibility of more radical science is very much present.
Okay.
For Einstein to think about, re-look at the experimental results of his time and to reimagine the meaning of space and time is a very radical step. It's a very philosophical, literary imagination which runs that.
True.
Right? But then after doing it, you control it within the discipline of the language and the discourse. That's science. I think, therefore, that much freedom is not as much available to social science, theorizing and so on. You are a lot more constrained for various other reasons. Including the simple fact that I can do any experiment on an object. I take a stone, I want to break it, I will set light fire to it, I will melt it and so on. But obviously you can't do it too.
In social sciences.
In various communities and humans and so on, or even animals today. So And that just gives one illustration of actually
True,
the constraints present. So
Uh-huh.
within the constraint, you have to produce meaningful knowledge.
Mm.
But the problem in the science also uses mathematics as its language, which allows a great scope of freedom. Because mathematics, remember, is more like poetry.
Mhm,
In fact, for a very long time, even in India till 20, 30 years back, it was taught as a BA, not as a BSc course.
Oh, really?
It was an arts course.
Okay.
Traditionally, this was seen as an arts course. So it has got that spirit of poetry, imagination, doing things without being worried about, whether it's matching to the world,
True.
right? Because mathematics is about what? In fact, in the whole Western tradition, mathematics is very closely related to theology.
Yeah, true.
And there is a very deep connection, even in Islamic thought, about mathematical.
And many Greek philosophers thought the truth is and God is in maybe found through the maths.
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes through right up till Newton and so on.
Yeah.
So it's a very well established tradition within that. So, that is a kind of a freedom and imagination, which writing about, in social science is a little more constrained. Philosophy is also a lot more constrained by the discourse itself.
Okay.
Although the language is English or whatever you want to write, Latin and with whatever thing, Sanskrit in certain classical traditions and so on. But you have had it in almost every language has produced its philosophy.
Okay.
And it is bound by the discipline of that language and the concepts you produce in that language.
True.
So I have always found science to be a very creative enterprise,
Talking about the constraints in social philosophy, currently we would maybe zoom out a little bit and talk more about the society and things when it comes to the sociology and social discourses. So I was wondering, maybe this is because the current scenario of contestation, in the sense everybody is competing against each other to have their own rights and shares. There is no space for maybe understanding each other, trying to understand the other and compromising and compassion. There is no language of compassion or compromise. So this could be one reason for the anything about the social, the discourse of social become very constrained, I feel.
Yeah, I mean we are in that kind of a situation, right? And part of the problem also has been about disciplines itself. Who are disciplines meant for? So let's say we have sociology and the different social sciences. It's a very small minority of a society which studies them.
Yes.
And if you look at higher levels of research, etc., then it's a much smaller minority which does that.
Yes.
Then the question, unlike the sciences, where you could have very specialized people working at high level research, and it's still meaningful because something of what they do is produced as products. Not all of them, but for a very large number of them. Especially in today's science, where most of it is driven by funding from various sources who have very clear end goals of a product of research. So at least there is something. Okay, I can be in a very abstract domain. Only 3 people, 4 people will know it's so super specialized, but I'm producing some new material or doing something else. Okay. In the social sciences, okay, we have all these scholars, we're all writing something and so on. That is not producible as a commodity for ordinary people to engage with.
Okay.
Right? So a smartphone, for example, everybody today in India uses, let's say, but none of them will have a clue about what the whole technology, the
working
science behind
the whole
it.
thing.
Yeah, they can just see it as a thing, right? So there is some translation and transference of some kind of knowledge base of the sciences into these products.
Okay.
Now, in social sciences, that is the real challenge that we have.
Okay.
So we have people who have written about social theory, they have written about caste and religion, etc. Everything has been written about. But then we are talking about social strife between people, ordinary people.
Yes.
But what is being produced in understanding them is produced at a very higher esoteric level. The question is, how do all of that come down to the people?
Okay. The applicability, you mean?
Applicable or transferability, translatability, applicability, all those kinds of things. That is, in other words, if somebody has something very meaningful, they have understood something about society, how does it get part of our own understanding of ourselves?
Yes.
So that if suppose somebody says compassion is very important, or care, like you said, or non-violence or whatever, then how does it come down that all of us as ordinary people living in the society begin to understand that and say, oh yeah, you know what, that's what should influence the way I live.
Yes.
Has social science done that? I don't know. I mean, it's a more contentious thing, but I would say, yes, that kind of bringing those ideas down to the people who are not necessarily been trained or invested in learning those kind of vocabulary is very important. It's something which we talked about earlier about. So, and the kind of magazines you run, for example, for people to read and so on. So, and Kerala is particularly very good at it. I think they have a very wonderful public discourse just being produced, because the kind of stuff in Malayalam that they produce for our, general readership is quite astounding compared to any of the other states I've seen, maybe Bengal a bit. But so what I'm saying is, maybe that is the challenge of the larger things. How do we bring these ideas? And, I think every social science discipline has produced very important insights into so many things.
Yes, the anthropology, the sociology, they invest a lot of time and effort in understanding the other or different communities, how their ethics work, how their internal rationality work and everything. And they produce a lot of literature. But you feel there is a lack of communicating this to the masses which would finally help them to understand more about the other, in the sense one community could understand more about the other, which would lead to more understanding and more communication, more compassion. But that part is lacking. That's what you're saying.
I think so. I think a lot of these academic books don't reach to the people.
Yes, that's true.
Really, very few people read them. I don't think too many academic people themselves read these books, unless when it comes unless there's a particular citation or referencing, they might look at it. So there's a lot of very good work which has been written. So many wonderful, deeply insightful work from history, anthropology, sociology. We have to figure out how best to engage with it. How do you bring it? I mean, for example, I'm here, as you know, for the book discussion of Said Alvi's book, right, on barbers, caste in Islam. And there is so much, it's a very well written book. And when I was reading it, there are so many new thoughts and ideas which comes, and a lot of things you can actually understand about communities, right? Now, you need many such books like that. So if that is, in that sense, that is readable, but because it's been published by an academic publisher, so most people can't access it.
Yeah, true.
So these are all these questions. So now, stories like this, if they percolate, will we begin to get more? It's not to help us make decision. We are judgment should be our last thing. First is to understand so many other ideas coming in, right? So can these academic books reach people, or those ideas from them?
True.
I would think that so many of these books, they should just write a simple common essay from many of these books for ordinary readership. Say this is what the book, or just summaries and say this is what they are talking about. These are the things we can learn from it.
More like from academics to the activism. But I would say a successful academic translating to activism would be like more Dalit studies, gender studies. And these studies actually translates to the activism and changes on the ground.
True, and also that's because many of the academics are themselves activists.
Yes.
Not necessarily the case in the other disciplines. So you could have sociologists and anthropologists who are not themselves activists. Not necessarily, there are many. But in general, I'm saying, their domain is the academic institute, universities and so on, and they teach and do something. But whereas gender studies has always been had, and the Dalit studies, I've had, academics who have also been activists, who have taken positions, who have fought for it and so on. So that is part of the nature of these disciplines, right? But there is, as I said, how in understanding other communities and societies, what are the different stories that we have? What are the different representations? How do we make sense of it?
Exactly.
Because a lot of the things which you talked about, the lack of care and compassion comes a lot from ignorance.
Exactly.
One can be deliberately provoking hatred and stuff, but there's a lot of it comes from ignorance. Like I was just telling you, right? I mean, there are people in Bangalore who have all these stereotypes, and now about Muslim stereotyping has become a big thing, right? Okay, so every time when they say this, then I ask them, have you ever met a Muslim in your life? Have you gone to one of their houses? Have you talked to them? Do you even know what you're talking about? And you'll find that they don't know anybody. They haven't talked, they haven't engaged with them as people.
Yes.
So I'm saying at that level, you know, their views are coming from pure ignorance.
Yes.
So that's why this question of conversation, question of opening up these very different stories of all kinds.
Yes.
So much of these, even if these are Hindu communities, let's say in Bangalore, it is also true with caste for them.
Yes.
They will say something, oh, these Dalits are like this and this, but they have no idea. They've never even met somebody. They've never seen what kind of life they have to live.
Yes.
So I'm saying at one level, the hope is that if they know, if they are open enough to listen to all of it, maybe the beginnings of conversation are possible.
Yeah. So basically, like how communities act and fashion themselves, like on what basis, in this sense, the underlying ethics behind their actions and things are unknown to other communities. So they are not able to understand how the other communities work. And this is across the communities, I guess.
Across.
Like there is a very lack of engagement and communication.
Yeah.
So which would have resulted in more compassion, as we said.
Yeah.
That's very pressing in the sense in the current scenario.
Yeah.
So that I feel that would be the reason you again move towards the world of fictions. You started writing fiction, which is still includes a lot of philosophical questions, but it's more approachable, more to the mass audience, so that they would also be privy to the discourses and things. And this shift towards the fiction writing has been influenced by your concerns about this ignorance, I guess.
I definitely, because actually what happened around 2018. I've been in different institutions. I was at NIAS, then went to Manipal, set up something, then came back. But by then I was beginning to find it very difficult to make sense of the politics of the country. Especially a lot of this social media, which provokes people into thinking they know and making all these very, very hateful comments. And it had become part of everyday life. It is not that there are some people doing it, and it become part of, casual talk. That you could actually say something really, very insulting and all that. And it's taken as part of their way one talks. So I decided to, that time, to really focus my attention to children.
Okay.
So it was about 2018. I thought of this thing of starting something informally called Barefoot Philosophers. And since I still had students at that time and I was in NIAS, I said, maybe we should focus our attention at a much younger age, because I was seeing already that how much impact children are already having with stereotyping and believing in certain kinds of things. And as we were talking about, competitive nature had become so ingrained in our school systems and so on. So I thought maybe it may be useful to work with children first. And so I started this initiative called Philosophy for Children. And that was really wonderful for me, is to really learn about, and it's not about applying philosophy, but it's about provoking them to think about the world in a particular manner.
Yes.
And we did a lot of them. It was really wonderful experience in different languages. And then I wrote a book called Philosophy for Children, which is now in many different languages. But through that, we were able to reach people whom I would never have been able to reach philosophy or even academic world to them.
Yes.
Right. So there's a school in near Salem called 𝐑𝐢𝐬𝐚 school in Konganapuram, in a village in Konganapuram, where the chairman of that school was very interested in a kind of ethical teaching to children. And he had designed a whole school teaching methods based on Tirukkural.
Yes.
Okay, which for them, in Tamil Nadu was very important, ethical text. So, but then because of that, he was trying to understand what does it mean to teach the ideas of truth and ethics to children. And then he came across this Philosophy for Children. Then I've been engaging with them for the last many years. Now we have introduced, a 9th standard, 1 hour every week as a philosophy regular class, not as extracurricular, regular class which everybody does, where we are really talking about cultivating the senses. So philosophy not as knowledge domain, but philosophy as cultivating certain attitudes, cultivating, for example, thinking, questioning, asking them about how do we make sense, why do we accept something, and also to make them understand their own subjects better, whether they were doing science or not. You know, and for me, mainly it was to give them the confidence of these children to be independent of schools and teachers at one level. You know, that if you have bad teachers or bad schools, that cannot destroy you in your life. So how do, especially these people who have been marginalized and not been in the mainstream system, which is with social capital, so how do you liberate them from that? And that has been, you know, for me, that was a very important thing of bringing it down to the larger public. So the children thing is what then provoked me to doing the other book I did, Social Life of Democracy. And that I was very struck by, you know, Ambedkar's idea of social democracy. And I'd been struggling with this question. We've been talking about democracy and so on. Electoral democracy seems to be a lot of problems with it, you know, at some level. There are some very important elements to it, in a sense, in the Indian context. But I wanted to find a text which will speak to people, not to other academics or, you know, whatever stuff. So I wrote this book for Siegel called The Social Life of Democracy. And that was also, I think it was, you know, it's really one of my more important texts in the sense, but it's very readable and people can actually read, disagree, communicate, whatever it is in that sense. But so that was the point about bringing it down, in a sense, to set up a conversation with people and see how do you engage with society in a larger sense with these ideas. The fiction, I did not begin to write following a prayer for communicating a philosophical question, actually. But what you say is true. That is the end product. I wrote it because I was puzzled by a particular question, which I could have done as an academic work, like what is the meaning of prayers and why do people pray? So when I pray, I'm saying some words, what happens to it, etc. So that has been in my buzzing my mind for a long time as a philosophical, as a thing on language and so on. But, you know, there was no way, I didn't have the capacity to write it as a book in philosophy or whatever. And I was not really interested in that because after working with these children and so on, when I wrote the novel Following a Prayer, it is really about this question from a child's point of view, not from an adult's point of view.
But very magical realism going on, I guess, like they are running behind the words and they're plucking the words from the trees. So that layer is also going on in the...
I think that is what triggered that book, because I said, okay, how will I intellectually in an abstract manner answer the question? This is a question the child poses to a grandmother who's always murmuring prayers. She says, who is listening to you? Why do you keep saying prayers the whole day? Where is it going? And so the grandmothers are irritated, just as a joke says, go run behind it and see, you'll know where it goes.
True.
And that becomes this magical realism or whatever, in the sense that for me, it's more than magical realism, because for me, words have power.
Real existence.
There is real existence, there's power, there's causal capacity of words. And that is really what I was exploring in that novel, that how words produce this in us. And so when she playfully goes off, and then the consequences of following those words. You know, that's very metaphorical. She gets lost in the forest, comes back and doesn't speak, and so on, right? So, yeah, there is, for me there, the question was not about transmitting philosophical ideas. But although, as the story progressed, some of the questions of what is language, what is meaning, but all of them are filtered through the level of those girls, you know, 10 and 12-year-old girls. That is all that, I'm not writing as a philosopher in that. I'm not writing about my knowledge of what I know about language. I'm writing about what is it to think about it by these children at that particular context. Right? And I think it's also different from a philosophy text in that it can make you very emotional. I mean, it can provoke your emotions. You can be happy, angry, you can laugh, you can cry, you can get angry, you know.
And I personally, I was very sad, to be honest.
That's at the end. But not till there, I hope, you know.
But I was very invested in like where you're taking us, and at the end, I was very sad. But talking about the speaking to the children about the ethics and things, I'll come back to that part later. But now I'd like to ask about the question of the social life of democracy. So the thing is, it seems that unfortunately, that's the trend all around the world, the rise of populism, the right-wing populism and things. So what we see is, unfortunately, the electoral democracy seems to be rewarding the hate, in the sense the more hateful, the more you nurture the hate between communities and things, you are more likely to win. So it seems that the electoral democracy rewards the hate and things, which should have been the case. So which is a very, very pessimistic situation we are in at the moment. So more and more countries are falling for the trap, I guess. So like, where do you see a way out from this?
Yeah. No, now that you mentioned this, it provokes me to thinking about it in this following manner, that is it a problem of electoral democracy as such? I mean, we know the strengths and weaknesses of electoral democracy in general, okay?
Yes.
It has had some very important contributions, as many political scientists in India have pointed out. For example, a very important thing, like people like Chandok and others have pointed out, is that democracy in India is really not as much about individual rights as group rights.
Yes.
It has brought people who would have been invisible and kept under the power of the elite. You know, that would have continued if it was not for electoral democracy.
Yeah, that's true.
And that shifted the whole way of looking at the society in terms of, so it has consequences of group identities, etc. All of that happens. But it also did that great revolution.
Yes.
Much needed, which I don't know which other mechanism could have brought us to this so fast.
Yes, true,
right?
true.
And so there are some important part, but the problem with it in the context of present day is just this question of majoritarianism. I mean, the fact that are we only voting, the majority is going to dictate what democracy really is. So while that is a problem of delivery.
Okay.
Delivery of democracy, because the voting, remember, is just the delivery of democracy. It is nothing to do with the aim of democracy. Voting per se has very little to do with what democracy is. It's about, if it is seen about choice, because you know, when I did the social life of democracy, that's what I began with. I began with asking the question, what is there anything ethical about democracy?
Yes.
That's a question I wanted to answer. I had written a couple of op-eds in Hindu, which I wanted to base on to start off with, as to say, look, what is ethical about democratic practice, including voting? And I realized voting had just become a transactional mode.
Exactly.
So I wanted to explain to the people who are involved in voting, what is the moral dimension of voting? And then I wrote this piece on saying, look, actually, why do we vote at all? What are you voting for? And there I made a very simple argument that, look, the meaning of the public is that all of us have a share in the public wealth.
Okay.
Whatever is called as a public, the state. Okay, state is an organ of it, but I'm saying whatever is called as a public, all of us own it.
Yes.
Like the
Fair
park.
share.
Yeah, all of us.
Yes.
We have one small, with a million of us, and there's a park.
Yes.
And that's part of our public, then all of us have 1 millionth share of that park.
Yes.
But when I vote, so we can't sell it, I can't sell it, etc. Maybe unless all of us decide to do it. When I vote, I am only choosing somebody to take care of our common wealth, which that person and us all own.
Yes.
To take care of the public wealth. That is the ethical question here, which means you are asking the person I vote to be a trustee of the wealth that we all share.
Okay.
And therefore, the failure of democracy is immediately correlated whenever the public gets converted to private, you know there's a democracy has failed.
Okay.
Because public was...
You mean the individual level or community level?
No, I'm saying at all levels. The public is that which is, you know, publicly allowed. All of us have own it in some sense, right? Now, when that gets converted to private, our ownership of the public
Yes.
goods and the public land is gone.
Yes.
Whether it is water or air or land or whatever. And anybody who does that, and it's only politicians who do it, because instead of being trustees of that wealth, they have become owners of that wealth.
Yes, that's true.
That is the problem. And that's it's not really a problem of democracy as an ideal in that sense, maybe, but more on the delivery mechanism, which means we have not had, accountability for this and so on. And the other part of the delivery is about voting itself, that we have not educated people, and not educated is a very, maybe, not a very perhaps the right word. I'm saying the amount of qualities that you expect of a voter, not in terms of degrees and education and so on, and just an amount of knowing about what is it to be a human, what is it that you're voting for, etc. Are those kind of things, if it had distilled a lot among the society, there will always be people who will take money and vote. We can't be concerned about everybody who is involved in society. You just want to know whether most people want, how do they see, in other words, what I'm saying is, we are voting based on how we are looking at society.
Yes.
That's all.
Yes.
Most people I know who are voting for these politicians don't like the politicians.
Yes.
Not necessarily like, oh, I love them, I want them. They won't even, they are using them because they are representing their view of society. So we need to change these people's view of society. And that's why,
I was wondering, like, see, when you say what is due to us, like everybody should have the right to the public good, what is due to them, like fair share, I would say. But then the thing is, then the minority politics or the Dalit politics or all manifestation of this politics will say that we are not getting the due. You know? So which is also an emancipatory discourse in the sense, like when it comes from the Dalit discourse, they would say that we haven't been given the fair share.
Correct.
So if we organize, we vote, then we'll get the fair share. Then the problem is, this is the same argument from all the sides, even from the majority Aryan discourse. The discourse is democratic in the sense they are only saying we are not getting the due. They are not saying like we should get the wall. They are just saying we are not getting the due. They are articulating a very democratic, at the outset, very democratic argument. But the thing is, the same democratic argument has led us to what we are in the mess we are now. So what I was wondering is, like, where is the way out? In the sense, I was wondering, like, is there a possibility of inculcating ethics where you compromise for the other? You know, like, do we need a different discourse inculcated to this democratic discourse, which is fundamentally flawed as we see now?
I agree with you. That's why I said what attracted me when I was struggling with this question was Ambedkar's idea of social democracy. So when I read Social Life of Democracy, I begin with this point, which I thought was so truthful and so basic that I don't see why people don't think of this at all. Once you read it and you say, oh my God, why don't we teach this in school? Which is Ambedkar's point that, okay, political democracy is important. I mean, he is after all one of the important architects for that. But he also says political democracy without an idea of a society being democratic is quite meaningless. So, in other words, we really want to understand the spirit of democracy. So, we are using the word democracy to refer to various acts. But if you want to ask what are the qualities of democracy that we really capture something as voting per se is not democratic, capture all those qualities
so now
of
it has become synonymous to, like, what is democratic is what is, like, the political, the voting and things.
So that is not the quality, I mean not the essential quality. So so Ambedkar's point was, okay, the society has to be democratic, otherwise what's the meaning of calling a democratic government? And that's what triggered my question of asking, how do you make society democratic? So to me, the democratic processes are those which is not about choice of who is going to govern you. It's about those which is fundamentally about what are the mechanisms of governance, distribution, whatever, which makes a society democratic. But first I had to understand what does it mean to say society is democratic.
Yeah.
Because where is democracy to be found? What is democracy in a house? So I begin by saying, where do you find democracy and how you have to inculcate it? Is it from a house? Can a child go to parents and say, you're not being democratic with me, and I want chocolate and you're buying dress, so that's not democracy, it's a choice. And then you go to the school. What is the meaning of democracy in a school system, in a class system, which is inherently hierarchical with the teacher and thing? If I have had students who will say, I don't want to read this text because I don't like it. And there are students who say, I don't want to do mathematics because if I don't like it. And then what is the point? Is that being anti-democratic if you tell children, no, you have to learn mathematics,
True.
right? So I explored that in that book. And as I said, I wanted it to be readable, so it's meant as a general conversational text. So what does it actually mean from house to school, to jobs, to colleges, everywhere? And if we are not democratic in all of these, how do you expect suddenly a politician to be democratic in a society?
True.
So Ambedkar's, and there was a very interesting point at that time. China had released a white paper on calling themselves as the world's largest democracy.
Yes.
And it was a very interesting text, because they say, well, we are the world's largest democracy. Without naming India, basically they're saying everything is happening in India is all bogus, because democracy is not about how many people vote, but how much you can benefit people. So they want to call it as people's democracy, which is democracy. So voting is one mechanism to achieve some goal, right? So for these people, they said our democracy is a means to achieve some goals to people, where people can get more economic benefit, more access to social goods like education, health, etc. Okay. So they say, well, we may not call it as what they start calling as Western democracy. We don't call it as that Western democracy, which is individual vote, etc. and so-called notions of choice. But this is what we call as that, etc. Okay, so there are various questions around. I discuss it a little bit of it. But then I find that eventually what Ambedkar says about a very simple point. I just wanted to work at only that level. So there's a lot more which can of course be pulled out and analyzed. Ambedkar points out that the three qualities of democracy are liberty, equality and fraternity, which he modifies and takes as a different interpretation of the French Revolution. Now you have liberty, equality, democracy. And then he points out that liberty is largely about individual rights, individual freedom to do what I want, choice and so on. He says liberty by itself is in opposition to equality. Like we see today, the merit versus reservation argument is really what Ambedkar was talking about, liberty, equality argument.
Okay.
And says they're both in conflict with each other. They're both necessary, but they're both in conflict. Okay. But we need a term to control these two and keep them all in balance.
Yes.
And that is fraternity.
An anchoring concept.
An anchoring concept. That which enables these two so that they don't destroy each other.
Yeah.
And that is fraternity, which he draws as Maitri from Buddha. And this fraternity, he says, is the root of democracy.
Okay.
There are a lot of very interesting questions about it. And I think a work of all, generally about any intellectual tradition, is to build on other people's work, extend it, look at its limitations, look at its strengths and how you want to build around it. All writers are, like often people say, oh, that person is not a philosopher, this person is not. I often reply to them that one makes somebody a philosopher. 10 of us keep writing about them, reflecting on their work and commenting, and then, that's what happens, right? So there's a lot more to work on Maitri and build on it and extend various interesting things about it. But I thought that was a very, very powerful insight. It's driven largely from his lived experience about the nature of societies, nature of what the communities went through, the Dalit community. So it speaks so deeply to the lived reality of a society, and it offers us a way to understand this question of what is democracy without giving up on democracy. That's the crucial point.
True.
Because, if you don't have some control, what would be the alternative? Even if there's majoritarianism, if they didn't have, I agree that sometimes majoritarianism overrides, electoral democracy. But if this is not there, I shudder to think what that majority would do. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, historically, we have had very bad examples of all of this. So, but this question of fraternity, that's a question you are coming back repeatedly to. And that is also my fundamental question. How does this care and compassion and fraternity, the notion of fellow beingness, brotherhood, etc., how does it come in? And that can only come from schools. It has, that's why the question of democracy coming from schools is so important. Because as you had also pointed out, schools have become so competitive that it's all about students destroying another student in order to survive in a classroom. And how do you bring in questions of care, compassion and maitri right from that time?
Very important. And I was wondering, like, since you have engaged with the children, students, like at a younger age, I was wondering, do you think or do you feel that the care and compassion and ethics, that's innate to children or innate to us? Why I'm asking this is the fraternity and the compassion and care, these questions also ask us to be compromising, to share, in the sense even what is due to you. If one children has two, like one child has two candies, and his friend doesn't have any, but then this is his candies, but he still has to share his. But this is also compromising his rights, like what is due to him. So this is it innate to us? That's what I was wondering. Or do we have to, is it going against the individuality within us, where I need to eat both candies?
Okay. No, okay, there are a lot of very interesting things in this. Okay, let me state my position. You know, hate is taught.
Okay.
Hate is taught. I think we are innately social beings.
Okay.
We are innately, in that sense, if you want to look at it as good, quote unquote good, because good is a very particular kind of human value, but I'm just saying in a larger context. We are innately like that. Particular forms of capitalism wants to promote the view that we are all competitive and that we will destroy each other if you don't allow whatever, and that, you know, the better person I am, more meritorious, I deserve more.
But
all of that are produced.
That runs through the Western philosophy, I guess.
Yeah, and that has been produced in this notion of particular individualism. I'm saying, so the two questions. One, is care and compassion innate? Yes. I'll qualify what I mean by that. Second, that the idea of the individual is not the primary unit. It is a social which is a primary unit. This is our argument which Gopal and me make in our everyday social book. Through the length of the book on how the individual has to be extracted from a social.
Okay.
Social is what defines us. Whether the social in the sense, and this is where the real interesting question comes. The social is first produced for us in the family. So the idea of family as a unit, which plays such an important role in India too, and in many communitarian groups, it's a very difficult question to understand, because family is also a model of sharing. So when we say, can people share, every family is about sharing.
Yes.
In the sense, you know, like once a writer was telling me, he was quite, I think he was quite upset about something. He said, you know, family, I give all my money I earn to my children and to my wife and stuff. I don't even think about, I won't give it to somebody else. I won't give 10 rupees to them. But here I earn, and for me, I don't even think about them partaking of it, right? The question of sharing becomes a foundational question of at least the ideal family structure. And in general, however problems there are in a family, question of sharing is very integral.
Yes.
Even the food the mother may cook, or the father, whoever is cooking, is also shared.
Yes.
It's not done for one person.
True,
and the money you earn is shared, the house is shared, everything. So we learn that question of sharing very easily and immediately within the context of a family.
Yes.
Now the problem is that family teaches us the innateness of sharing, But family also teaches us that sharing with others
Outside the family.
outside the family is a problem.
Okay.
So, in other words, sharing is produced in a family, but a social definition of a family which distinguishes one family from another makes this problem of sharing across society a problem.
Okay. So that is both sharing and the opposite of is also being taught from the family itself, you
Exactly.
mean.
That's the point. So, both compassion and hate is taught in a family. In a family, there are various rules which will transgress various caste things also to some extent, but it is a family which will also protect the caste boundaries in various ways. So, it is this very odd position of the idea of the family,
Yes, yes.
which is, integral to many of this. So, if everybody looked at everybody as a family, the world as a family, as now many of these Hindu people keep saying, right, is that idea that the next person deserves a share in what I have. That has to be
Giving up
taught.
what is due to me.
Yeah,
like
what is enough is
supposed
what
to
due to
be.
me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, I remember when I wrote a book, again, another thing for general public on ethics of philanthropy. I did a study of J.R.D. Tata for his 100th year, and I went to his archives in Jamshedpur, Pune, etc. Very remarkable person.
Yes.
And I discovered that he was very deeply influenced by Gandhiji's idea of trusteeship.
Okay.
And here he disagreed with Gandhi on all economic principles, okay? But he was deeply influenced by Gandhi on the idea of trusteeship. And Gandhi's idea of trusteeship is quite brutal, where he says even that any wealth you have, it is your duty, moral duty, to protect it and enhance it for the betterment of society, not for the betterment of me.
True.
So he had one of the rules in his trusteeship rules that the money which a family or a person generates cannot be given to his children.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was quite radical.
So where does it go then?
To the betterment of those who are worse off in society.
Oh, okay.
And his trusteeship model he draws from different religious doctrines,
Yes,
Islam,
the very
Christianity.
term trusteeship,
Yeah.
in Islam, the idea is human beings are Khalifa, in the sense the trustee of
Khalifa.
yes, Khalifa. Everybody is a Khalifa of the material world. So we have the responsibility. So anything like even the property and everything, you don't really own.
Absolutely.
In that sense.
Correct. You don't own it. And
Yes.
Gandhi's point was, you may think you're a great industrialist, you may make a lot of money, it's not yours. You cannot even give it to your children. Very interestingly, J.R.D., who had various other disagreements on his economic things, etc., went by this principle of trusteeship. He repeatedly writes, that has been my great influence. I still follow his principles of trusteeship. To the extent that, he gave away all his wealth into a trust.
Okay.
He didn't own it. He didn't have children, so it's not that he could have given it to anybody he wanted. It was not his wealth to give away.
Yes.
So it went into the Tata trusts.
So it was not his own in the first place.
It was not his own in the first place at some level. But it is his moral duty to be able to produce the wealth. It's not to say, well, it's not my wealth, I'm not going to do anything about it.
But he has a responsibility to make it better.
Better, exactly. And in the sense of the worse off. And I think that is the point about democracy which I repeatedly, so when I finished the social life of democracy, that is the point I repeatedly came back to and tried to explain that, people talk about democracy as freedom, and the last chapter is on freedom. And I say, no, it's really, what is freedom? Because we really look at acts of freedom. For me to be free, there are many others who have to be unfree.
True.
For me to be free to travel for a holiday, for example, I am dependent on so many other people working.
True.
To enable that.
Yes.
So, for me, the definition of democracy really goes back to the fact that any act of my freedom, anything which I can demand my freedom, only when the others around me are at least in my level of freedom.
Yes.
I can't keep saying, I want freedom to do this, while a larger number of society doesn't even have that freedom. So, in other words, a democratic society is always looking at the world, at the society, from the perspective of the worst off.
Yes.
Everybody else's turn has to wait. Yes, I may think I may have a right I should get this, get that, etc. But my turn has to wait because it can only be from the perspective of the worst off in a society. That I really think is the principle of democracy, and that is it may resonate with many theological doctrines of different, religions, for example.
Yes. So I am very interested in what you're saying in this, and I myself have like a 5-year-old. So I am observing him, like how he's growing up, how he's learning how to share, and giving up what supposed to be his. So if my dad giving him 2 candies, he would rush to me and give me 1. So which, I mean, for my dad, when he's giving him 2 candies, even if he's having both of them, he won't have an issue. Even I won't have an issue.
Correct.
Because that's okay for me to give him my. But I would observe him to learn how he is sharing things. So fundamentally, what you're saying is, so we are innately compassionate.
Absolutely.
Innately, we have a capacity to give up what is supposed to be us.
In fact, sorry, just to interject, but when I teach on ethics, I always show, especially when I do with children, I show a video clip of an experiment done with rats. They have done this with many other animals also, rats and monkeys and so on. So there are 2 examples I'll show you. There's one, these are strange monkeys, bonobo, those monkeys, right, in Africa. So there is a caged monkey, and outside the caged monkey there's a plate of fruits. And then they release another monkey who is not related to that monkey, not in whatever sense, family ties. And that monkey comes. So it's all shot, okay? It's an experiment they're doing. It comes, it looks at this monkey sitting behind the thing, and it looks at the plate of fruits. Okay? And here it has all the plate of fruit for itself. And the larger question they're asking is, will it open the door and let that monkey to
others?
So it goes, it begins to eat, and promptly opens that door and let the other monkey come and eat. There's another fantastic experiment with rats, because everybody says rats are the worst, like people also say don't be a rat race. Poor thing, like this guy who did this experiment, and the video says they were given such a bad name to rats, because this is a wonderful experiment of a rat, which is, there is a rat which has been imprisoned. Again, like an imprisoned thing, like it needs a mechanism to remove it. Otherwise, you can see the rat is caught in this tube. And then there's another tube filled with chocolates, which apparently is the best feeding thing for these rats. They love it. So they release this rat. So it comes, looks at the chocolate, looks at this rat, goes into the chocolate and eats one. But promptly comes out, struggles to open that. Okay, there are no familial relations here. Open the other rat, and the rat comes out, and they both go and eat. So this first rat may eat more of the chocolate than the second one. But it is shared. I mean, I think it's humans who actually teach these questions about, the distinctions between people. These are all socially produced in a particular way, including the fact that they're not family, that they can't share this, and so on and so forth. So given this optimistic potentiality, then societies must be geared towards strengthening these potentialities rather than eliminating them.
So I mean, that's a very optimistic view of things. Like, we have a potential of, like, within us to nurture, to give up, to be compassionate, to be caring towards others, and to basically to think about other than myself. And that also part of our survival, in the sense that you cannot survive yourself.
Absolutely.
So it's also being selfish, but you can also be compassionate, I guess. But then you would say, but then again, the goodness, the virtue is also being taught, and the vice, the bad things or hate, and also being taught. So it's upon us to teach.
Exactly. And if you did not build a society based on these principles, then you can actually imagine a far more harmonious existence. And that's not like an ideal utopia, because there are communities which can do that, which have done it. The basic challenge here is, what is your worldview? What are the concepts of our understanding the world that are needed to make this happen? How do we view the world? How do we view nature? How do we view other human beings? You know, all that becomes very important in enabling this kind of a compassionate thing. I mean, I would see, for example, I mean, even socially producing communities, you can see it in Buddhism, the early Buddhism, among the very early religions, where compassion becomes an integral part of all fundamental goal of philosophical thinking.
Okay.
There's no point in just being very good in logically solving problems if you don't produce, you know, if compassion is not accompanies this particular knowledge claims. So definitely one can produce systems like that. But today, you know, so and we have to, I mean, we don't talk enough about it. We assume, we tend to take for granted technology is such an obvious thing and it's there and naturally there. And all. It's all absolutely consciously produced machines which produce hatred in particular ways.
Talking about the how the Buddhist theology and things, I was there is in Islam there is the idea of ihsan as a methodology in the sense in Islamic jurisprudence where you give the primacy of the goodness, like what is good for the other, and ihsan literally means like husn means the beauty.
Yeah.
So beauty and goodness, you know. So this as a methodology, how to what to judge or what to do. So you would consider if it is good for him, or good for others. So as a methodology itself, you know. Okay. And when it comes to the innateness, there is this idea of fitra, where we all have the acceptability of goodness. We are born with the to accept the goodness. We are more lean towards the goodness, you know. So and you can so the later the family and the society teaches the vice and goodness as well. So we have to nurture. Yeah.
And I think that's, I tend to believe that the only thing is the larger problem of the others. You know, how do we see the others? Who belongs in our camp and who doesn't?
Who doesn't, yeah.
You know, that is the larger issue. So if you say that you look at goodness in all, which is the ideal thing, right? So even about questions of fraternity and maitri, it's about just the recognition. I don't know who you are, where you are from, what you are, but just the recognition of you. Like you were just saying, I don't know what your background, etc., but I recognize goodness in you.
True.
And or I recognize a sense of brotherhood and fraternity. That should be the basis. And then later on other identities can come. I mean, I don't know, I don't think we can escape identities because it's part of our cognitive structure. We categorize, like we categorize objects in the world, we tend to categorize things, and so we may, and identity is nothing but categorization at the first level. So, yeah, maybe we do, but at least it is moderated by this. You know,
and on a very like personal level, when you do good, you feel good, and your body acts positively. I don't know. I mean, when you hate or you do something,
it destroys.
So very fundamental level, we drawn towards the goodness and compassion and care. I guess, like when we help somebody else, we feel the goodness within us.
But why, when it is so, let us say, innate in some sense, or even if it, I mean, it even has a consequence that we feel good, why is it that we are so bad all the time? You know?
Exactly.
So that's I'm saying that's the struggle in the socialization of whatever. That's why, for example, in Hindu theology, it repeatedly comes back to this question of the self. You know, and the removal of the self and the removal of the ego. And that's why I think this is common with the Islamic thought too, about the idea of surrender, like in Bhakti traditions or in other traditions like Ramanuja and others. The surrender to a higher self, whatever it is, which really negates the differences between each other and so on. So there are, I mean, so there are all these questions about, therefore, the function of Um, where do we learn these concepts from?
Yes.
What is the role of religion? And whether religion as practice or religion as theology, what concepts come through. All those things become very important.
But what troubles me is, like, if goodness is innate within us, why does hate unites more people than the goodness? In the contemporary scenario, like all around the world, the hate unites more people, it seems.
Do you think hate
politics
unites people? I think, people who are in hate, who have this capacity to hate, can't unite by definition.
Okay.
It's like an inflammable substance, a very volatile substance, let's say, like gunpowder, whatever, some volatile substance. You put two volatile substances together, they'll blow up very fast. Volatile substances in principle can't coalesce.
Okay.
So when we see, that's why I'm saying some of these things we need some real good empirical data to fine tune it. What is uniting these people? One. Okay. It could be stereotypes. It needn't even be hate in that sense of very specific objects. So here also there's this problem about language. That's why I go back to following a prayer when Kalpana says all language is a lie. And language is used to produce false worlds, right? These kinds of things which people say, I'm saying this in a very optimistic sense. I know on the ground people are suffering because of this. But if you really analyze it, I think it's not just that all the hate people have come together.
True.
They're coming together for various other reasons. And the rhetoric of hate produces that community of that group.
No, I mean, I would agree with you because and in a pessimistic way, I would say this why. But the thing is, let's observe the Trump campaigns. Why would people vote for Trump? So the core of the argument there is again ethics and morality in the sense I would explain. The thing is, what they are saying is we have to care for our family, our community. That's the core of the question. So how do you care for your family? You protect your family by eliminating the what is disturbing the peace and happiness of your family and your community, which is the other. But the core is again the concern for your family and your community and care. So this is the contamination of language in the sense they are themselves, the hate themselves is organized on top of the idea of care and compassion.
Absolutely, wonderful point. Yeah, very true.
That's very pessimistic in the sense now your whole idea is challenged in the sense now how do you then destroy this idea? If they have been organized on hate, then you could. There is an opening. But that's not the case. They themselves are organized on the care and compassion and ethics, everything you talk about.
No, very true. In fact, some of the very moving story, powerful stories, I would say not moving necessarily, about, dictators and Nazis are all about how with their family they are like that, with their children they have so much love, etc. But they're just, doing the Holocaust or burning Jews in the back and so on, like it happened in the thing. So these kinds of stories about, it's true in almost every, maybe people go out in communal riots and coming, being with their children, happy going and doing something else.
Because they think they are protecting their family and their community, which is a noble thing to do, but...
Correct. So this is I think in the kind of social hate that we produce, it is not the older, one could say, let's say, an older impulse towards protecting your family from invaders and fighters. You're not fighting. There's no enemy. Nobody's invading your house.
This is
the problem.
That is the thing.
So this is
the finding enemy within.
Exactly. You don't have an enemy, and you produce hate as a form of a pseudo. There's a pseudo enemy, and there's a pseudo protection of your family.
Exactly. So this is the by creating the other as an embodiment of everything bad, like
Yeah.
like Muslims are doing this, and
Correct.
for example,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Muslims are contaminating our things, they are attacking our children, they are eloping with our women, and everything bad. So this has so the other has been portrayed as an
Yeah.
embodiment of everything bad,
Correct.
so that you could create this false idea of protecting your family
Yeah,
and things.
for now, as you said correctly, protecting your family, which means you are actually, by doing this, by creating an other, what you're doing is you're producing your community. You don't have a community.
Yes.
None of these guys have a community. In fact, that's why that's part of the problem of what they see as a commonality between people who hate. The only commonality is they all have
hate
stereotype
the
about
same
Muslims.
yeah, yeah.
They hate Muslims. Between them, they have no commonality. Their rituals are not common. They don't read the same texts. Even their practices may not be common. Their food practices will not be common, etc. But to produce this pseudo commonality between them, you need that one particular
common enemy.
So we need to keep attacking this rhetoric and say this is why you're doing it.
Yes.
Why? What is there common with these things? You know. And that's why in the Tamil Nadu questions, the North Indian, South Indian question is also about that, even within Hinduism. What is this common Hinduism that you practice there with us?
Yes. Yeah.
So what are we reconciling? What are we coming together? Or whom are we fighting? What are we fighting? And why would you, stereotype everybody of a community?
Yes. Yes.
You know?
And here the question of your idea of Maitri comes in. Again, the Gandhian engagement with other communities, the Muslim Hindu communities, opens up a hope.
Yeah.
In the sense that there are, hopefully we have a way out from this mess.
Yeah. No, I really hope, I don't know whether Muslim communities engage with Gandhi, as much as they could perhaps, because we know that there's been some questions about Gandhi within the Dalit discourse, and very rightly so, given his, inability to come out of the Varna system, but also as a great champion of Dalits in a different context. And I think Gandhi is a very important figure. I mean, like Ambedkar, we need to engage with them more seriously, and everybody may have some fault lines and some gaps in some perception, but I think to see what we can do to recover whatever we can take from people who have had deep lived experience, who actually worked on the field with people and not just written about these things. So I think there Gandhi's engagement with the Muslim community is quite remarkable in its scope and depth. And I don't even know if any of it is even reproducible to a small extent today, but at least if it's an ideal, this belief in, first of all, recognizing certain universality of religions. That's a very important step. While we recognize that there are, for various reasons, people have different religious preferences, but certain core positions of references, and therefore being aware of what those religions say. Today there's so much of stereotype about all these religions without each religion person knowing what the other is, what they're even talking about. Eventually they may all be talking about something very similar.
Exactly.
And for Gandhi to be able to draw upon textually from Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism is quite remarkable. Even in his thing on trusteeship, he goes back, looks at all these religions and then gives his rules of trusteeship and so on. And this question of, respect and dignity in conversation about people who are not like you, who don't follow the principles that you do. So I don't know, it's become a little bit of fashionable to beat Gandhi now for everything now. And that's why it has allowed the appropriation of him by certain forces who shouldn't. But, I would think there is much in the context of learning to understand the other, not even look at the other, to understand and engage with the other. That's a very important principle. But then Gandhi is challenging because his morality is challenging. He demands too much of each one of us.
Yes. And also, he is too idealistic in the sense that he feel that the goodness in us would, or in all of us, would overcome the bad.
Yeah. In general,
Which unfortunately is not the case.
No, I know, but I'm saying, while there may be, where we see instances where the goodness has overcome, the badness overcome the goodness, are really not about human autonomous actions. they are manipulated actions supported by huge amount of power. They are not even agential act. What I mean by that is to say, I'm going to do this because I hate that person, I want to do this. You know, at the social level. It's actually quite manipulated. That it is not really about our loss of goodness, even at that moment. It's only about a few people controlling particular kinds. You know, I find it very difficult to give up on our sense of goodness. I know because we are controlled and manipulated, so we have to resist that part. Maybe we have lost our goodness once you allow yourself to be controlled and manipulated.
True.
You know, but yes, we may need a different kind of an analysis of that. Maybe I'm just thinking aloud now that you ask me this.
Because we cannot be pessimistic. There is no other way to think about this.
Yeah.
There must be, so we have to believe that the other is not an option.
Yeah. We have to believe that. We have to believe that, you know, certain shared, you know, qualities, etc., are so much more important.
Then again, my contention towards your following the prayer, the novel, is the Kalpana and towards the end, she stops to talk altogether. She stops to communicate. You know, like so in a, which is very pessimistic in the sense she, maybe because she thinks communication is not the way out. There is no possibility outside, in the sense that the language is a lie, and you are not really able to communicate, to express what is within and things. So it feels like she has given up, which is not an option. You cannot.
No, I agree. No, I think it's really profound observation. I hadn't even thought of it till you raised it. But you know, my quick answer to that is, she is not stopping communication with people. There's a reason, right? So she, I mean, I don't know who will read it, so let me as well tell the story of it, in the sense, at least the first part. So, as you know, she goes missing and gets lost in the forest, rainy season in Western Ghats, terribly frightening. I remember standing and half an hour in the dark forest, I get scared. This little girl of 12 years is lost for 3 nights in the rain and in the forest, and she keeps calling out to her gods.
Yes.
What she has been taught and trained.
Yes.
And she thinks no gods come.
Yes.
She imagines them, they'll come and then help her and save her. And those 3 nights are traumatic, not because she was scared and all that, she survives it and everything.
Yes.
But because she feels betrayed by language and by her gods. And in that, I'm only using a very simple common trope, which is true of all spiritual leaders. Okay, I'm sure there are many examples in Islam, but you may have a better idea, which is that a true seeker will have a moment where they say, I doubt there is God.
Yes.
Where they confront that doubt.
Confront the reality.
And then they overcome that doubt.
Yes.
Right? In Christian theology also, it's very important.
Yes.
You confront it and say, no, maybe there is something, maybe it's not there. And then you overcome it and then you discover. Then your truth becomes more deeper and sweeter. So she is that. At that moment, she says, how can, you know, where were all of you when I was calling out to you? Okay. Now, she is still a child, and so obstinate child. Like one of my friends who read it, she was saying, I want to slap Kalpana. I want to tell her, listen to your parents. You're not listening to your parents. I was telling her, look, she's just a character, you know. But the point is, yes, she comes back as an independent girl, or whatever she thinks. And she says, all this language you have produced for social communication, or whatever else you do, is all based on lies.
Yeah.
Okay. So there I can
but
see
then
your
she
point.
She retreats. She's not trying to find a way out. She retreats. That's my contention.
Correct.
Yes.
But then, correct, I agree with you. So in that trauma, if you like.
Yes.
And
she's confronting the darkness. Then, see, it feels like she finds it hopeless, and she retreats.
Yes, she retreats at that moment because she feels betrayed.
Yes.
She feels betrayed by her gods. Okay. She feels betrayed by language.
Yes.
She retreats to the extent that she, it's just like a kind of an obstinacy. Immediately she's come back after the traumatic event. But remember, what pulls her out is her sister and her friend.
Yes.
And
Their
that
compassion and
core
care.
notion of
Yeah.
compassion.
Yes.
Okay. And that compassion is never presented as compassion.
Yes.
It is just this girl saying, no, you have
Understanding her,
to understanding
giving
her,
time.
and
Yeah.
then she's communicating to them.
Yes.
Okay, so this question about what is language, is only spoken, is it communicable? And then the second part of the book is all about music.
Yes. Yes.
The attempt to recognize whether music is a purer form of language.
Yes.
Does it speak truth more than our spoken words?
What we've been talking. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I agree with, I think her retreat, I mean, one way to recover from your very serious challenge to what Kalpana is doing, it may look like a retreat from human thought. I think at that level it is, but it is more an attempt to discover a language which is true.
Yes.
And a language which to her can really communicate with the non-human in whatever sense. So the question of music becomes very important.
True, true. No, that's very interesting in the sense, when I was reading, I was actually rooting for her to come back.
Yeah.
And find, personally, I had this challenge, like I was, and many of my friends, when we were growing up, like when we've been to university and things, we were very vocal.
Yeah.
In the sense, every badness in the world can be challenged, and we can create a new world of goodness and things.
Yeah.
And we were very vocal, very polemic, and everything. And after a moment, we realized that you cannot really change anything. So I can see in Kalpana this moment. That confronting the reality. And I was thinking, and I was expecting her to come with a solution, so because most of us personally, we've retreated from social media and everything. We used to write a lot on social media, and we used to go everywhere and talk and things. Then after a moment, all of us retreated. Now none of us write on social media and things. So I can see my personal journey in her.
That's a wonderful point.
But then later, we ourselves, we are trying to create another language of communication. Like, okay, this is the reality. Now, how can we go about this? So that's why we are creating new avenues, in the sense that we've started online magazines where we speak about ethics and morality and compassion and care and everything. So all of us try hard to create different avenues of how to go about this reality of darkness.
So Kalpana is going to do that.
Yes.
She is thinking about it and will eventually do it, I think, in the second book, which will come.
Yes, please.
No, you know what, Mashkoor, I must confess, I had finished the novel, and I mean, I didn't done the last part. I didn't know how to end it. Okay, because her accepting language back would have been, I thought, okay, I don't know what would have made her speak.
True.
Because nothing has been resolved for her about the truth of, she hasn't had that kind of experience about God and so on. Music, she's learning in very different ways and so on, right? So I couldn't finish the novel.
Okay.
And then one day or night I got up, I remember, I got up knowing, I mean, with the idea that this is what is going to happen to the children.
But
then, the story fell in place.
Yes.
Immediately.
Yes. But then there is the Kankamma. She says very interesting thing, that she is not really silent.
Yeah,
she is
correct.
Speaking all along. We are not really able to listen. Maybe,
that is the point. I really believe that, she is not withdrawn. She is searching. That's why she's willing to sit through the music class without singing.
Yeah, maybe she is speaking louder.
She is speaking,
but they are not able to.
We don't know how to listen.
Listen, yes.
That's the other point. See, for me, I am also very worried about language. The problem with social media is about language.
Yes.
The fact that we can say anything we want, which is so brutal. I mean, people write whatever crap comes into their head. So I'm saying, well, we have not respected language enough. We have not thought enough about language. So we have to find ways to engage with the problem of language itself first.
Yes, yes,
You know, hate is just another thing which comes after we engage the question of language.
yes.
And but yes, I think you've given me a very important thing to think about Kalpana herself. But as I said, you know, there have been so many, especially when you're my older friends who said you cannot end with this. You have to have part 2. I said, I may do part 2. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully we are rooting for her to find a solution for us.
I have a title for part 2. I haven't written it. It's called Following Kalpana. You know.
Okay.
So
Or Kalpana speaks.
Kalpana actually speaks at the end. By the way, if
she
you
does.
notice,
She
she
does.
tells that to her grandmother and her mother, and so yeah, it's a
Yeah, this is very important for us because the language we've been using so far is a language of competition, or I would say that the modernity. What modernity has done is to put a middleman between everything. So you have a fight between or misunderstanding between you and your wife. So there comes the court to mediate.
Yeah.
So everywhere where there is a mediation happening. So you need something from the government. So you go through these agencies. You need justice. You go through another agency. So everywhere there is a mediation happening, a third party. So basically what modern institution has done is to remove us from directly speaking to each other.
yeah,
So you always speak through
yeah.
somebody. So a community speak through their leaders, like their politicians. They don't speak to each other.
Correct.
So this is, I think, Gandhi finds it difficult to understand or to be at home with the modern institutions. He always wanted us the communities to speak to each other directly.
Yeah.
Through a different language,
Yeah.
the language of care and compassion, not the language of competition and so on.
No, so I think you make a very important point that language itself has to be compassionate first.
Yeah.
Our actions, which since we are so dependent on language, how do you produce compassionate beings by first producing compassionate language? The movement towards community, of course, a lot of people will also react to it by saying that many communities don't have a good record in treating women, for example, or other, especially the caste structures, other ways properly. So should we even allow communities to come back? But these are the kinds of thinking, new thinking that we need to do to find balance between, you know, two different kind of opposites.
True. So I think hopefully we would end with a hope.
Yeah, absolutely. I am always hopeful
that a good world, hopefully by catching them young, as they say, like to teach our kids how to care about others, to be compassionate, to be more helpful, more understanding. That may be the way out for us.
I really think so. And I think that means reforms with our school, or even if we are not able to make much thing with the school, there are different ways we can reach out to them and build this kind of, that's the way we build Maitri and fellowship in a society.
Thank you for this wonderful conversation.
Mashkoor, it's really glad that you did this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
your deep reading of my work and for sharing it.
I mean, I was deeply moved by your writing of the journey of Kalpana, and I was really rooting for her to win.
She will.
She will. She must.
She must.
There's no way out.
Yeah. Thank you.